All right, everybody, welcome back to another Bootstrapper Live. This is going to be our first live retrospective in almost 2 years. So it's going to be an in-depth one. We're going to dive deep into the ownable methodology. And for those of you who are joining us today, welcome. Thank you. We appreciate you investing the time. You're going to walk away today with a couple of things. You're going to walk away with this deck if you'd like to be able to take it and then read it at a later date. You're going to be able to have the information that we cover in terms of slides. You're also going to be walking away with a full long form breakdown, which is a 20-ish page breakdown of all of the topics and concepts that we're going to be covering today, so that you also could reference this as long as alongside the cheat sheets of your slides. And then you're also going to be walking away from my book, Ownable, which is a 500 pages here. It's a 500-page workbook on the ownable methodology, which is the methodology that we built, or that I built. I've written this painstakingly over 5 years. I took the live, learn lessons of running our firm, our long-term equity management firm, Bootstrapper Capital, for the past 5 years, as well as the decade plus experience from our holding company, Simple Holdings, and tried to distill the concepts of how you could build an ownable business, which is a business that maximizes the long-term value while defending against the natural erosion of equity over time. And this is a quite literal step-by-step breakdown of exactly how to build an ownable business. And we cover quite a bit. We also give quizzes at the end of every chapter, and we really try to make it like a textbook, so you're really picking up what we're putting down. And at the very back end of it is a full-blown workbook where you can take the things that we cover and you can then apply it. And it takes you through a whole process that gives you a transformational change in terms of building an ownable business. This is actually the core that we ran with for years with the advisory firm. And then it's what we developed and designed the Bootstrapper AI software around. So when you become a user in the software and you start to build equity in the platform and you run through the exit studio is actually designed to mirror the workbook here. So you're going to get also from watching today and walking away with today, you're going to get the score your engines, which is really a way to do diligence and risk and readiness on your business. And that's what we're going to cover. We're going to cover the things that could impact the value of your business. I want to give you all of these resources, all these materials. You'll be able to walk away with it so that you can actually work yourself through a high-level engine-based diligence, which, again, in today, we're going to cover exactly what that means. Once you connect the two, you can read about it even more here in this long-form workbook that kind of complements today's slides. And then you can actually walk away and do it. And if you want to make it a little bit easier, you can just join bootstrapper.ai. You can sign up for a trial if you're not already in one, or you can join the fellowship program where for 12 months you get access to the software, you get access to the fellowship program that actually works you through the ownable methodology, and you get to implement it, and you also get paired up with a long-term equity management advisor. And as of recording this right now, you get all of that for $500 for the year to get started, with the goal of tying it to a goal line success fee of accomplishing it within that 12-month period. So phenomenal opportunity for you to be able to build an ownable business and create value. What does this mean? So today we're going to cover the owner's dilemma. A lot of us think that we're building a sellable asset. A lot of us, at the end of the day, have a lot of our net worth tied up inside of our business. But the reality is because of just the natural cadence of running and building a business, the real reality is we're likely just building a life. And the owner's dilemma is kind of like living this reality of, my business is paying me, so I think that I have an asset. But really, because I'm so important to the business and because I'm not building a durable, transferable, valuable business, it's not really an asset for me. It's really more of a job or a liability. And that's what we're gonna jump into today. So most business owners believe that they have an asset. The reality is it's not the case, right? We're in a situation where we're being forced to stay inside of the business, meaning the business is running, the business is growing, the business is making money because of the work in which we do inside of the business, especially the vast majority of SMBs out there. Without a doubt, the case for bootstrappers in the audience. You may find the fact that you're at a point where you're ready to finally sell. And when you do get to the table and you go for an offer, the return that you get, the reply that you get, may actually end up becoming a little bit insulting. And you're like, hey, well, why? Why is it so low? I thought it was worth this. And at certain times, you may end up in this life cycle, surviving and navigating the 5 exits of ownership. You may realize that you're looking for capital and you end up in capital that you don't really want, but it becomes capital that you need at that moment in time, and it's on somebody else's terms. And the result becomes something that's not necessarily out of your control, and it's definitely not an ownable business, right? So Sally Sue, for example, I use Sally Sue in all of the books, right? Exit with Ownership. I use Sally Sue. She's a character that my daughter drew. Helped me create this character. We carry Sally Sue into the ownable book as well. She's kind of the example that we use throughout. Sally Sue owns a lemonade stand. It's also why our icon or our logo is a lemon guy. Lemonade, it's like bootstrappers know how to turn lemons into lemonade. We can make things happen. Business owners in general, right? We're problem solvers. It's in our nature. It's in our blood. We try to find what's, where the juice is worth the squeeze to a certain extent. And nostalgia, lemonade stand is like the simplest possible business. It's like the old school, you start a business when you're a kid, it's a lemonade stand. So that's why we went with the lemonade stand. Sally Sue runs a lemonade stand. And on Saturdays, she's pulling in $15, right? But she's doing all the work. She's squeezing lemons. She's making the signs. She's talking to the customers. And the test of if she has an ownable business is just simply asking, if Sally Sue doesn't show up, what happens? And the reality is the revenue is a goose egg. It's zero, because the business doesn't exist without Sally. Sally does not own a business. She owns a job that she created for herself, right? So what we want to do is stop and pause and ask you, attending today, if you didn't show up on Monday, would your business run without you? Do you own a job, or do you own an asset, or do you own something in the middle and you're interested in finding out what, why, and how? And if you are, that's the goal of today. We're going to talk about the language of ownership, and we're going to get aligned, right? So when we're talking about ownership, there's some words that we're going to use, common vocabulary that's going to come up a lot in today's session, and also in a lot of the content. Even though we try to keep everything at like 5th grade level simple, keep it simple for sure. Simple works. Simple's not easy, but simple definitely works. It's really not been a simple thing to be able to take the complexity of long-term equity management and creating durable, transferable, valuable assets and distilling it down into a methodology that actually works, and then taking that, doing that for years with clients and for our own businesses, and then ultimately building it into software so that everybody can do it at scale in a very affordable, flexible path, right? So that we can hopefully make it one day fun, fast, and free for everybody. But common vocabulary, assets, it's going to be something that works for you even when you're not working, right? So when we talk about assets here, or your business being an asset, that's what we really mean. It's something that's working for you. It's something that's paying you. It's something that's generating value for you. A liability, something that only has value if you're feeding it, right? So essentially, it's siphoning off your time. It's siphoning off your energy. You need to balance it. Equity is the ownership value that someone else would pay you, right? So if you're looking to actually sell this thing that is your business, what somebody else is willing to actually pay is the equity in the business. It's not really the money in the bank account, right? Because what we're going to find is Again, Sally Sue is making $15 on Saturday. So you would think, oh, $15, her business is worth some level of a multiple of that. When Sally Sue doesn't show up, there is no money. And at the end of the day, investors and buyers, we don't want to buy jobs. We want to buy assets, right? So the goal is to distinguish between them and then determine how we can make them. Something that has equity is valuable only if it can be transferred, right? So maybe if it's valuable and it's an asset to you today, but for whatever reason, I can't run it the same and it can't be transferred to me, then it's not really valuable, right? So it needs to also be transferable. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the thing that we're going to focus on in terms of value creation is this thing called the wedge, which we call wedge equity. And that's just the gap between what you think it's worth and what actually somebody would pay for you, and understanding the difference between like what the business you think is or what it could really be worth and what the market actually would pay for. That difference, that thing in the middle, that's the wedge. And if you understand that, and you understand what creates the wedge, like the why, then you can actually manufacture wedge equity, which is creating value for yourself that you can capture at sale, right? And again, a business that somebody else would buy is probably also a business that you don't really necessarily want to sell, right? And that's the goal at the end of the day. So we're going to talk quickly about some ownership truths. The ownership truths are going to constantly come up. These are the things that we think are universals, and it's just giving us a framework, right? So these are kind of like canon for us. It's ownable canon. They're not suggestions, they're just rules. And if you operate within the rules, right, like first principle rules, profit first principle rules, I guess, not necessarily profit first, profit led, then it gives you a decision framework to be able to make good, timely decisions within, right? So from a capital truth perspective, you don't want to take on money before you necessarily can afford to follow the discipline of it, right? So capital follows discipline. You don't want to make a decision that you can't undo. And there are some decisions in your business that you can't undo, right? Such as rule number one, taking on bad capital at times. Time truth is, your business is either moving forward and getting more valuable, or it's moving forward and getting valuable. Constant truth is the fact that time constantly moves forward. So you're either doing things that make it more valuable or you're doing things that make it less valuable. By natural law of attrition, a business becomes less valuable typically over time unless you're a steward of it and you're intentional against defending against that erosion. Owner truth is, if you can run it, if you're the only person who can actually do the thing, then the thing's not probably valuable, right? So being replaceable is not a threat. Right? It is the business. Like, you want to be replaceable. A lot of owners have this fear of like, oh, they need to be the center of the universe. That's how you build yourself a job. That's not how you create an asset. Honesty truth is, you need to accept the type of business that you're building. You can't build a bootstrap lifestyle business and build a venture velocity high growth startup at the same time. You need to accept which one it is, and you need to be truthful and honest with yourself, what vehicle you're building and why. And you need to make your good, timely decisions from that framework, right? From that direction. The commitment truth is, a lot of us oftentimes will confuse being doing busy with being like efficient and effective or productive. The goal is to plan, but to execute the plan, right? So yes, everything does start with a plan, ideally a simple plan, but really rubber meets road. Value is built, equity is built when you execute. Execution is what's key. And you can't just, confuse this delay of planning it because it's a very expensive thing, because that takes time. And in time, your business is just innately getting less valuable. Sequence truth is, there is the definitive reality that there's right actions, right decisions, and wrong ones. And the sequence truth is about taking the right action at the right time, because the right action at the wrong time is ultimately a wrong action, right? So these are just some basic 7 principles that give us a framework to make decisions, because you need that decision matrix. You need ultimately a framework to make good timely decisions and identify the pattern recognition of what goes into a good timely decision. So we distilled it into this. This is going to get us into the question really that we want to cover today, what we want to get obsessed with, which is what the business is actually worth, right? And when we're talking about what the business is worth, it's not a feel. It's not like what you feel it's worth. It's what the market actually says it's worth, right? At the end of the day, your business is worth what somebody else is going to buy it. Now, a lot of folks, if you're looking at buying businesses, which is really popular now, we've been like literally living this life since 2013. That's when I set up the holding company. I set up the holding company after having bootstrapped and exited multiple businesses early in my life. And then we got into this game, and the game was the forever game. And essentially, I didn't know it at the time, but it was long-term equity management, right? This stuff didn't exist when I was doing, when I was getting going in 2013. So I made a lot of mistakes. Like I had the opportunity to go and feel like, oh, you need to do, I did not, for example, know the difference between the honesty truth. And I set up, I initially set things up as the HoldCo, and we launched a venture accelerator. And my goal was to build my portfolio. I didn't really acknowledge the difference between building portfolio lifestyle businesses and building, venture-backed velocity startups. And we were running this accelerator, and I was investing my capital, and I was trying to build my HoldCo, my portfolio, my continuous capital vehicle, but not knowing these truths, not knowing these things that govern the value of businesses and the decisions you're making. It leaves you in a situation to make bad decisions. Lessons learned. Which again we pivoted. So as we started to set up and do more blue collar businesses through Blue Collar Capital, and then bootstrapped B2B service and SaaS businesses through Bootstrapper Capital, all these things evolved and developed over time, which took a lot of time, right? We're talking well over a decade of live lessons learned to be able to understand this. And I'm still learning. I'm still very much so learning. That's why we do the podcast. That's why we talk to a lot of people that have exited. That's why we're trying to build the community around exited and exiting owners, because there's a lot of just like live lessons learned, and they're the most expensive because they take a tremendous amount of time to be able to pick up. It takes a lot of failure to get the thing, to know the thing that's right. It's like, I don't want to have to invest the time to learn 1,000 ways to not build a light bulb. I'd much rather just speak to the person who figured it out and just know the one way. Better yet, I just buy the light bulb, but buy the outcome. So when we're talking about this profit number, what we're really talking about is an ownable valuation, like your ownable cash flow. When folks in this build, buy, sell space are talking about valuations, a lot of folks will come down to SDE. I've also in past videos and, live life lessons lived in the past, would bring it into SDE because that's like the market common norm. Lo and behold, I kind of realized this is not really the framework in which I've made decisions. So when we're sitting down and we're writing the book over the last 5 years, and we're really trying to be reflective and think back introspectively as much as possible in terms of like actually what we do and how we've done things. When we're doing things ourselves, I don't do SDE because like I know innately, like if I buy a business or if we're doing a deal, I'm not going to be the one that's doing that work because I'm not trying to, right? So like if we're buying, let's say a landscaping business, like we've done simple deals like that in the past. All right, cool. Like we're getting a business, there's some equipment that's coming with it, and there's some contracts that are already in place. They have it set up on, actually in that deal, they didn't have it set up on recurring payments. We actually did that with them as a service, but we get into recurring revenue. We got it set up. I'm looking at it and I'm like, all right, we got the equipment, we got the customers. It's on some level of recurring basis. All I need is the work to get done. And I need to make sure that somebody's making sure the work is getting done. That's what the owner was doing. But I know going into that deal, like I'm not going to be doing that. So when I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about the cost that it's going to be to replace the owner. SDE is adding back in. Ownable cash flow takes into account the cost of replacement. So when I think about things, that's why we landed on ownable cash flow for our perspective, because what you're trying to do is level set out the value of the asset. And the ownable asset, again, if we get back to definitions, an asset is something that works for you even when you're not working. A liability is something that you have to keep feeding. So in order to get to the baseline of an asset, we get to the baseline of ownable cash flow, right? Which is like the actual net unit economic cost of you actually truly owning the business without doing the work. When we're talking about the multiple side, so in a traditional multiple valuation, probably should have added this slide in, but I could just cover it quickly here. A typical multiple valuation, and why we're breaking this down and we're trying to determine and define SDE versus ownable cash flow. Traditional multiple valuations are going to be like SDE, so you're calculating your SDE, and then you're going to apply a market multiple, which the market multiple is literally that. It is like certain businesses trading means somebody's going to buy it at a certain multiple. A multiple is like quite literally that, a multiplication of the SDE. And that's what the determination of the value is, future value of that business. If I was to buy it today, that's what I'm willing to pay. So folks in the space will get to SDE, which you can calculate SDE. You can go through a quality of earnings and you could figure out what SDE looks like. For our perspective, again, we baseline it at ownable cash flow. You're going to then apply a multiple, which is a multiplier. Multiples change based off of the type of business categorically, as well as the size of the business, right? So historically speaking, this is changing in this moment in time. Historically speaking, a software as a service would trade for a higher multiple than a service-based business, a professional service business, because the software is doing the work. It's infinitely scalable, code scales, there's recurring nature of the revenue, right? So there's these reasons, which we're going to cover in a couple of slides here. We're going to actually get into like what drives multiples and valuation. What you need to know is that there's multiples that are being applied to this number, your profit. We'll call this your profit number for the time being, right? Your ownable cash flow. And then there's also going to be a risk score that needs to be applied, a risk adjustment, right? So you're going to have your number, and then you're going to have your multiple. And for a lot of people, that's what they think a business is worth. We're going to get into why that's not the reality, because there's things that determine your multiple. And determining your multiple is what the traditional market multiple is, and then the reality of your actual business, which creates a discount rate. So you have, what your multiple may be. Maybe it's 4 times your ownable cash. But for whatever reason, as we go through, we're going to look at these levers that impact value, because what they're impacting is that transferable, ownable, durable value. Because again, people want to own assets. They don't want to own liabilities. So we're looking at each of these levers and we're trying to ask ourselves, is this making it more of an asset, or is this making it more of a liability? And that's probably the easiest, simplest mental model to take when approaching it. So we're going to look at the financial clarity, revenue durability, operational independence, owner replaceability, and the overall governance structure. We're going to break down what this means, right? These are examples of like weak versus strong. We're going to break down what this means. And then again, in this workbook that you're going to have access to, we break this down in a next level of detail. In the software, we do this in our engine assessments, and we break it down in extreme detail, right? We're doing like hundreds of data point level of breakdown determinations. The more in detail that you get, more granular, the more ability you have to actually focus and then create meaningful moments of value creation, right? But from a high level, it's important to just start foundationally and just like know what is, right? You want to know, where you're at. Why does this matter? This matters because first you need to know what your ownable cash flow is so that you can understand what that profit number is that you're going to then multiply by your multiple, right? And you want to know these things in terms of the discount rate because it's how you actually manufacture wedge. And wedge is like your silent value tax, right? So you have this market, what you think the value is. So again, in our example, we can do a simple example here. Don't do public math, but say you have a $2 million business with a one-time multiple. We'll do, simple math. Say you think your business is worth $2 million because you have ownable cash flow and you're giving it what you think the market multiple is. And in your brain, you're like, oh man, I have a business that's doing $2 million. I have a $2 million business because we're doing $500,000 a year. And I have a 4x multiple on my type of business. So man, it's a $2 million business. And you think you're sitting on a $2 million asset. A lot of owners fall into this trap or this dilemma because the reality is that's not how it actually works. What ends up actually happening is you'll end up going to market. And as you list your business, if you can even get attention in the market, because it's becoming increasingly difficult right now to even get good buyer attention, whole different conversation. Why? But the markets get made from a very specific reason. Another function of an ownable business that's transferable and durable and valuable is the fact that it's financeable, fundable, because you need to be able to get capital in order to buy a business, right? So you need to make sure your business can be bought, right? But let's look at, and which is why a lot of this stuff matters, because this is how you make it through underwriting. But in this situation, I have a $500,000 business. We got a 4x multiple on it. I'm like, oh man, I got a $2 million business asset here. I go to try to sell. I'm realizing that the offers I'm getting are all coming in low. I think it's worth 2 million, which that's like life-changing money, right? Put that in the bank, right? Invest it wisely, diversify, build a good portfolio. That could really go a long way. Life-changing money. I'm getting offers in that are like half that. And I'm like, man, what's going on? I guess this isn't a good representation of the offer value here. Let's just say it's slightly above half, right? So I'm like, man, I think it's this, but my offers are this. What's going on? The reality is the market is pricing in this risk. And if you understand the risk, then you can understand and identify wedge. So understanding risk is going back and saying, of these 5 things, where am I getting beat up on this price? And if you can understand it proactively, then you can improve this while you own the business. And what you're slowly doing through this improvement process, which we call an equity transformation, is you're quite literally reducing the risk. While you're reducing the risk, you're building that realized value until you eventually actually have a $2 million asset. And this is how you can manufacture, you could build wedge, which is really building value, which is really just building an asset, less of a liability and more of an asset while you still own it. And again, a business that somebody else is going to want to buy because it really is a $2 million business, guess what? It's a much better business to own. So like this is the type of stuff that you should be doing no matter what, right? So in order to get going, you kind of need to ask yourself, where am I right now? Right. So in order to get to where you want to be, which is an ownable asset, you want to maximize the value of your asset. You want to make the most money that you possibly can. You want to have the best business that you can own while you still own it, way before you ever want to sell it. In order to get to that goal line, you need to know where you are right now. And we've tried to simplify this because where a lot of people go wrong and why we're doing a lot of this work and why we really believe in what we're doing is being purposeful and impactful and something that's super mission aligned and resonates in a way that hopefully everybody can hear it, is because a lot of owners wait way too long. And you'll wait until you're right, right about to sell. And you start to go through these conversations and you realize and you're being told like this is what it is. Because the thing is like I'm not like really inventing anything crazy new here because it just is what it is. Markets get made, businesses are what they are, people value things, identify why, do it, remove it, otherwise you get hit by it, right? If you don't increase the wedge, then ultimately a buyer is just negotiating you down and they're trying to capture that wedge in the buy, right? The money's made in the buy. So like good buyers also understand that you're looking for businesses where you can build wedge. And that's kind of the art of private equity to a certain extent if it's done right in an ethical manner, because there's good and bad ways of building wedge. What I want you to do is also to consider where you are right now because you don't want to wait until you're a year out from selling before you start to thinking about this stuff. So what we tried to do is break everything down from just like instead of one final exit, I tried to break it down into 5 exits of ownership, which is why my other book is called Exit with Ownership. This is like a foundational book to actually set up Ownable, which I've been writing for like 5 years because again we've been living this life and just kind of doing this for a really long time and kind of care a lot about it. So 5 exits of ownership is to map out all of the stages of an owner's journey, and the goal is to realistically start with exit 1, which is exit your day job. Quite literally, it's like a risk adverse way of building a business is to be in a day job, essentially have your employer, have somebody pay you to get experience. You take all that experience and then some of that pay, and you build, what is hopefully an asset on the side because you're approaching it with an ownable methodology from the beginning. You test things out, sell it, make it, exit it. You find something that works. It's working. You get it to the point where it equals your day job or exceeds it, and you have enough ownable cash flow to divest away, and you exit your day job and you make your business your job. So your first exit is really just getting into business successfully, right? Exit 2 is you're exiting from having to do all of the work. Because exit 1, you're just getting started. Typically, you're the one that is literally doing the work. Like exit 1 businesses are very fragile. They're very much so liabilities for sure. What we're trying to teach people how to do is to go from exit 1 to like exit 4 as quickly as possible. Exit 4 is when you really start to have a true asset because you're getting to the point of an operational exit, right? You don't need to sell your business entirely to really truly have a true real exit. Really, the first real exit takes place once like you no longer have to show up and work in your business. You start to experience a little bit of an exit at exit 3 because you can essentially have a system that's kind of running and people know what they're doing, and you're kind of just managing the business, and you're looking at more of like the ownable cash flow, and you're making sure the ownable OS is all greens and things are running the right direction. A lot of folks falsely feel like exit 2 is that first real exit because all of a sudden they have other people who are helping them and getting stuff done. And like when you've been building the business as the owner and you're like doing everything, just not having to do that one job is kind of like a pretty meaningful exit, and you feel it. It's a very emotional exit. That's why we try to, in our fellowship program, we try to get folks to experience that first real operational exit really fast, because a good operational exit is just simply pay attention to the work that you're doing. Like, what is the job that you're currently doing? Like, literally, like a job being what is the defined outcome that needs to be accomplished towards the progress of your business, not necessarily a task, but an outcome. And how do you define that in terms of a job to be done? And what are the processes to be able to follow to do that? The action of documenting it and knowing what, when, how, who, why, all of the things that go into it being done successfully And then the ability to then hand that off to somebody else, which is the action of delegating to somebody, doing it successfully with the ability to then track if that person did it successfully, which is good delegation. That's exiting a job. That's your first operational exit. That is truly experiencing an operational exit. For a lot of owners, they feel like that is them exiting and they feel like now I have a business. The reality is that's very fragile. It's true in concept as an operational exit, yes, but it's not until you really have more of an operating system in place and you're not really managing people, you're more running a system, that you truly start to experience any level of real operational exit. But you still need to be here doing this, because if you're not running the system tends to degrade and fall apart. Again, most things do over time. It's not until exit 4 where you're really actually hiring somebody to run it for you. That's an operational exit. So again, you're feeling like you're exiting along each of these stages. And there's very specific things that you need to focus on in your business. There's very specific things that you should do. There's very specific numbers that you should pay attention to, and where liquidity, because the goal of owning a business is first to stay in business, right? But then you want to ideally be able to experience as much liquidity without losing control as you can while you own that business, because money is not made in having equity that's trapped. Money is made at liquidity events along the life cycle of ownership. So what you're really trying to manufacture is as many liquidity events as you possibly can without losing control. And I guess that's actually why we went back to the book. The title, like tagline of the book, is Liquidity Without Losing Control, which is also what I just laid out, is also, 3 principles of long-term equity management in the first place. You want to own the business, you want to stay in business, then you want to experience as much liquidity without losing control. That's how you're putting the profitable, ownable profit in your pocket. And then ideally over time, we all eventually exit. You just want it to be an exit in which you enjoy, so that you can exit with ownership, right? The most possible valuable, exit in which you can have. So you want to be able to master all 5 exits of ownership. The goal here is to identify which exit you are in right now, right? So that you can then start to go through this process of scoring your business. Because what we want to do and what we want to work through is to actually understand where you're at, and you want to understand where the risk lives, so that you can identify how much wedge you can build. And once you identify how much wedge you can build, then you design a plan. And it's a plan to execute building that wedge, right? We're going to work through this whole process. We're not going to cover the details of each step on today's webinar, but we are going to cover it from a high level so that you fully understand it and appreciate it. And then we'll give you the material so that you can actually go and do it, execute, because again, a plan without execution goes against, one of our 7 principles, which is commitment to truth. So what we want to do is get you a score, but before we can get you that score, right, your own ability score, your risk and readiness score, which is how we, apply a discount rate on your value. We want to know your targets, because when we're thinking about our businesses and we're thinking about designing our businesses and the act of ownership, really our businesses should exist to serve ourselves and our goals as owners, right? So the act of ownership and making it an asset is the business should be something that is providing you the life in which you want to live. You shouldn't be sacrificing your life for your business, right? It's the function of actual ownership. And a lot of folks find ourselves in the dilemma of that owner's dilemma trap, where all of a sudden, like, we're sacrificing our life to have this business, and lo and behold, we're not even landing with assets. We just create liabilities and jobs. What I want to focus on is getting folks into a position where you're owning something with a reason. So I want you to have like your own human OS. As much as I want to provide a business OS, I want to give you a human OS, so that you're making good, timely decisions for yourself in the act of ownership. And a function of this is your freedom number, because most of the time, most of us, we're doing these jobs and we're owning businesses and we're doing this work to generate income so that we can then go live a life in which we want to live. And a simple, cheat code for an operational exit is, or a full exit, exit 5, is to know what that freedom number is, where you're achieving, the number, you're achieving the goal, in terms of money coming in, right? So the way that we set that is we calculate what the number needs to be by taking into account how much you spend and what your life cycle, what your lifestyle is, and how much percentage buffer you want to have on top of that. And essentially that's going to give us an equity target, because realistically, if we're doing this right and the goal is to ultimately sell our business, then we just need to be able to have a large enough amount of money on sale that if we were to just invest it at like a very steady number, we're achieving our freedom number, we're achieving our lifestyle goal. And the ability to kind of set the plan in motion for, on a personal level, to give you a why of like why you should care enough to be able to do this stuff, is essentially you can set the target and then you can identify your current gap, right? Because what your equity target is minus your current business value is the thing that you need to absolutely execute on in terms of building Wedge for. So if your target is 2 million and your business is only currently worth 1 million, then you got to build $1 million worth of Wedge. But if it's vice versa, then you're already good. And you kind of need to know that. You want to know that so you can make the right types of timely actions, right? So this is also broken down. It's in the book, in the ownable workbook as well. There's a process to be able to work through this from a personal planning perspective, a personal exit plan. In the software, in the Exit Studio, it's done very well. You literally go through a full submersive experience to literally do this stuff, and the AI kind of supports you in the process and the journey. The reason, again, why we do this first is because we're framing it so that you can set targets. We want to know where we are so that we can have a very clear why in terms of why we want to pursue and take action to get to where we want to be, right? In terms of the 4 engines is how we break down a business in the ownable operating system. We break it down for the financial engine, the profit engine, the value engine, and the people engine. The financial engine is essentially the numbers. It's making sure that you can trust your numbers, that you know your numbers, right? Also important for buyers and for for capital partners. The profit engine is how you're getting money, right? So it's how you're acquiring customers. It's how you're activating customers to value fast. It's how you're ascending customers to more value, to more money. Value engine is how you're delivering on the customers in which you already, the throughput, the revenue in which you already sold, so that you're actually being able to continually achieve more and replicate. And the people engine is the folks that are doing it, right? And making sure that you're building a business that other people will be able to own, run, operate as an asset, right? So what we want to do is now look at and understand each of these 4 engines. And as we're working through the job to be done, the thing that we want to work all the way through here is to look at each of our engines. If you're using the workbook that we're providing, this is where we actually break down the engines, each of the pillars. And as you're working through this, you're going to be asking yourself these due diligence questions per engine, right? And this is how we assess risk and readiness. In the workbook, it's a little bit more sophisticated. And in the software, it's very sophisticated, because what we're taking into account is not just the engine, but also your existing current exit, right? And what we want to do is, because again, an exit 4 business needs different things than an exit 1 business. And as we're working through this process, we want you to prioritize things, the right time, the right place, the right level of perspective, right? So we're going to take that into account. In the workbook, it covers that for you. In the software, it does it automatically for you. From a financial engine perspective, the thing that you're really trying to just solve for is, can I trust the numbers? And trust the numbers means like actual source of number. So how the number is derived in terms of your financial engine, but also trust in the sense of, do you know your numbers? Right. And if you just start at know your numbers, which is where a lot of owners should live, a lot of owners don't necessarily know simple things like how much money came in, how much money went out, what is my cash on hand, like three simple little things on a weekly basis. A lot of us out there don't know those things. So if we just start there, start simple, that's a really great place to just start. Then from there, we want to be able to make sure that we know all of our numbers, which would be, our unit economics and our margins. And then we want to make sure that we can trust our numbers, which is to ensure the fact that the processes, the profit flows that we're following to be able to get to these numbers are accurate. From a profit engine perspective, what we're trying to solve for is, how durable is this revenue, right? Will it persist, without the founder? An example of this would be like, tie it back to the software as a service earlier, selling software on a subscription. If it's a monthly subscription, the assumption is that the customer is purchasing the software to get to a solution. And as long as they continue to persist with the problem and the software solves that problem, they will likely continue to pay if the value exceeds the price. And if that's the case, then there's a recurring revenue capture in that business, and it's durable because it's transferable and it's not dependent on the owner. Now, in a service business, a B2B service business, maybe the customer is only buying the service because they have a relationship with the owner. And they're only a customer because of that owner's relationship. And the owner is also the one that serves that customer because of the relationship. In that situation, that is not durable revenue because that revenue is not going to continue without the owner. When we look at the profit engine, we're looking at how you're acquiring customers. So you're looking at the components of acquisition. Again, everything is kind of coming down to the risk of it continuing, right? You want acquisition. Activation is how you're delivering. So acquisition is how you're getting customers. Activation is how you're delivering value to a customer fast, right? So it's time to value is the component. Ascension is how you're growing the value of the customer once you've already closed them, once you've already acquired them and activated them. And then your unit economics, if you start to pay attention, is really how you can maximize the value per customer over time, right? The value engine is whether or not the business will continue to deliver that value to that customer, continue to acquire customers, continue to activate customers, continue to ascend customers, continue to support that throughput without relying on, we say, heroics, the effort, the Herculean effort of the owner, right? Are there the right people in the right roles following the right profit flows, measurable, for this thing to just continue into perpetuity, right? Can all the knowledge actually be transferred? If you have a team member who's doing something and they leave, will it break, right? So you're thinking about transferability here, repeatability, consistency, sustainability of the business, right? Sustainability, repeatability of that durable revenue, transferability. And then from a people engine perspective, is the business running through people who are employed and hired at a price basis to achieve specific profit flows, jobs to be done that get that benchmark into certain outcomes. And can that continue regardless of the person, of the people? So this is really more of a continuity concern, meaning like, can other people come in? Is there key person risk, right? That's kind of, founder dependence is a huge one here for sure, right? So we're assessing This is actually it's a wild time, moment in time, because we're quite literally living through it as we're recording this webinar. But forever, historically, it's been like people, right? And now we're actually getting to the point where the people engine, maybe we may need to be changing this from people engine to like productivity engine, because agents and AI is becoming a real thing to be able to do a lot of this stuff. It's wild. All of this at the end of the day. So by going through and working through each of these engines, again, if you work through the report, the template, the workbook, or if you do it through the software itself, you'll end up with a score. And that score is going to be your risk and readiness score. And what that's telling you is how much risk is in your business, how ready your business is for sale or capital. And from a valuation perspective, what type of discount rate would need to be applied to your multiple? Because that's why we're doing all of this work is, again, we're trying to determine the real. What is the real reality? And you're trying to determine that discount rate, because if you can remove that discount rate over time, you're going to be able to build that wedge in your business and you can capture that value, right? So that's why, again, that's why we're doing all this stuff. So now you want to just go through and actually calculate your ownable score so that you can get to that discount rate so that we can then use it, right? And then we want to start to remove constraints. And the goal here is to understand, what's in the way of us building wedge, what's in the way of us having an ownable business, what's in the way of creating a more valuable business. And focus is pretty key, because you can do most things, but you definitely can't do everything. And the best place to start is to focus on one thing. So what we're going to now do is just rank and retrieve from our constraints, from the assessments, the thing that requires the most attention first. And a simple way of doing this is just to essentially look at the worst engine that you have and start there and focus there, because you're only as good as your weakest link. Unless it's like a toss. And if it's a toss, or if you're on the fence, then your profit engine is the most important thing. Because getting that money and having the throughput through your business is pretty important, especially, if you're at earlier stages of your exits. So this just gives you a really simple way of thinking through how to start to remove the constraints so that you can take the information that you just picked up and actually start to build equity in your business. And if you think this through, what this ultimately becomes is an equity transformation plan for yourself, which again, in the book, we have the equity transformation plan. In the software, if you complete your exit studio, if you work through all of this, it's actually going to generate an equity transformation plan for you. And it's pretty cool because it kind of just tells you like what to do and where to focus based off of your scoring and your risk and your readiness. We just want to keep it simple, right? And it's one small win at a time. The path forward is to then execute, because again, it's really important to have a plan. It's much better to act with a plan. So it's much better to kind of think things through and again, know where you are, know where you need to be, understand what resources you have, understand the risks to avoid, and then just go. So like a definition of a plan. But a plan without action is just a piece of paper. And you need to be able to take action quick, because again, time is truth and you're going to just continue to lose value. And you need to be able to commit and execute. So the path forward is to work through your full ownable operating system implementation. And what you want to be able to do is get your full North Star, which we covered some of that. The full North Star gets you your entire personal exit plan. It's going to give you an alignment of like the human OS, again, your personal why, your tank fillers. So you're just kind of aligned with the reality of the business and you're doing things for the right reason. And typically when we care about what we do it better, faster, it goes further. So it's really important to align into your North Star. Today, we didn't really cover it too much. We covered it from a financial perspective. You want to assess which exit you're at. You want to understand your engines and then run a analysis on your engines for risk and readiness. You're going to then take that analysis and you're going to create an equity transformation plan by ranking and retrieving. And then rubber meets road when you start to implement profit flows, because profit flows is you working through your four engines, your ownable OS, and setting up for each of these four the profit flows, the proven profitable processes that actually get the job done, that get to the defined outcome that you know your business needs. And when you can have your profit flows documented, proven profitable processes, when you have them documented, written down, when you have a stakeholder, an owner to own the profit flow, delegated, right? You can delegate it, you can automate it. Now we can agentify it. If you can write it, then you can do it. If you can do it, you can delegate it. If you can delegate it, you can make sure it's happening. So then you just need to track it and measure what matters on a weekly basis. Minimally, you should be measuring things on a weekly basis. And that puts you in a position where once your profit flows are set up, they're delegated appropriately, you have the right level of ownership in your ownable OS, which again, an ownable OS looks like this. In the software, we make it dead simple for you to do it. You got your financial information up top, your financial engine. You go right into your profit engine where you're setting up who's doing what. You're setting up your jobs to be done, right? You can have child categories for it. It rolls on up. You're setting your targets to your actual. You're keeping track of your status, red, yellow, green. Profit flows are being documented, right? As you're doing this, you got your profit, your value, your people. Then once a week, you just close your retrospective. And minimally, the job to be done is to do this on a weekly cadence. And as an owner, appreciate the results. And what you're really trying to do is identify the constraints on the business. So, like where things aren't happening, the red flags. Red flags typically are happening, meaning like a target wasn't hit. So, like quickly, I can look at my ownable OS. I can see green, 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 green. I go to the red as an owner. I'm like, well, why didn't this happen? What's the constraint? Ideally, you want to empower your people to be able to flag what they believe the constraint to be and then provide a solution. If something's red and they come with a plan, they update it yellow. So really, again, as an owner, I correct myself. You're really looking green, 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 yellow. If it's red, that's a people problem, right? But you're looking at yellow and you're saying, all right, well, what's this proposed solution? And what resources need to be allocated? And can we just make that decision, that good time of the decision to get it done? And your job as owner is to start to remove constraints. And ideally, you're trying to remove constraints on your people who are doing the work until the moment in time where you have other people that start to do that. And that's how you're starting to progress through exit 3 to then exit 4. And then the moment that you have somebody else who's quite literally running this operating system, doing exactly what that is, which is closing it out, running to a cadence of accountability and removing constraints in the business and making sure you're hitting key targets consistently, repeatably, in a durable, transferable, and valuable way, you have an operational exit. And that is quite literally an asset for sure that you can sell, because somebody else would definitely buy that, but you probably won't want to at that point. And if you do this consistently and you compound your effort with action and activity and execution, it doesn't take years and years and years and years to navigate through this, right? The reality is every business at every stage, like you can always have essentially like an exit for business. It's just like the stage or scale of your business currently at exit 4. Like as long as you have the economics where you can create a structure that supports an exit 4 business, you can have an exit 4 business. You don't need a $10 million business for it to be an exit 4 business. You can get to an exit 4 business with healthy 6-figure type of business, definitely 7-figure. You can start to get there. If you set it up right and you approach this right, you could cycle through this relatively quickly. You could definitely get yourself to exit 2, exit 3, like in cycles. And cycles being like 90-day, 100-day plans, right? Every 100 days, you're kind of looking at this and repeating the process. From a cadence perspective, you want to do your weekly retros, which is closing out the week, red, yellow, greens. You want to do your monthly closes, which is really essentially looking at the health of the business, like a health check from financial perspective. You want to do your quarterly business review, which is looking at the strategy, your key objectives of the business. Like, what did you really want to accomplish this year to move the business forward? And on an annual basis, you're looking at your strategic plan, which is essentially like, what are the things that we need to do this year, how you set up your quarterlies in order to get to where we want to be in like 5 years, right? And if you just get to this simple cadence, it's a cadence of accountability. If you can get to this cadence, and you get to this cadence by, again, just setting up a really simple structure, you align your structure into a very clear personal reason, and then you tie it and align it to everybody else's reason, and you support everybody through. You can run an ownable business with an ownable cadence consistently that really truly does build ownable value that's transferable, durable, valuable over time, right? So off of today's webinar, you've seen how we can create and identify the gap. We have a sense of the levers, right? We know the rules that we need to stay consistent to, those 7. If you're in this situation and you do not have access to the software, if you're not in the software plus the fellowship, so the really cool thing about what we built is we tried to make this something that everybody can have access to universally. Like, the goal here, like, I want to genuinely help support 35 million businesses, SMBs, navigate through this great pivot that we're going through. Like, this is definitely a moment in time where everything is changing. AI is definitely becoming a very real thing. It's either creating risk or opportunity for us. So I want to be able to create the infrastructure and support to help as many people navigate this as possible, to be able to support their livelihoods and reduce risk on it, and just for all the right reasons, realistically. We know that this methodology works. We think that software, there's a really good chance, is going to become commoditized. When we started building this, the world was different. So, like, quite literally, the thing that we're trying to solve for, which is helping folks go through this great pivot that's happening, like, we ourselves are being victims of it, right? Like, we started doing this ourselves. We then started to do this and provide it as a service to others, right? A lot of businesses, especially bootstrap ones, start as a service business. We provided long-term equity management, literally doing the things that we were doing for our portfolio companies for clients that had 7, 8, 9-figure businesses. We then started documenting it. We then, turned it into a productized service. We turned it into a community, right? We turned it into software, going up the value ladder. And in this entire journey, in this process, the world has changed because of AI. This pivot's taking place. And what was probably extremely valuable, expensive, what would have been gate-kept software like a couple of years ago, we're looking at now and we're like, I don't necessarily think that the software is truly the value. I think the value here is the fact that we're doing it together. We're doing it centralized in one place. I think it's the structure, strategies, and the accountability. So what we're trying to position and put together is software plus a fellowship. So it's software plus a program, a proven profitable program, like a program that we know works, fellowship program, as well as long-term equity managers who are coming in to support you. So we're literally positioning software plus a program plus the support. Let me try to find it on this page so that I can talk to the offer. So it's the software plus the cadence of the fellowship plus the actual support of an advisor coming in and doing it with you to hold you accountable. We want to create an experience because we believe that if you can do it here and we can do it in one place, we can better support, we could better build, we could better perfect. But by doing it in one place, the competitive advantages, you're going to get a better version of the system than if you were to, like, say, go vibe code something yourself. Like, yeah, you could definitely buy the book for sure. Spent 5 years of my life writing 500 plus pages. You can definitely go buy it for whatever the price is going to be, $25 or whatever, and upload it into, ChatGPT or Quad or whatever, and vibe code something and just say, hey, build me this dashboard that kind of does this. Yeah, you can, but you'll lose the fact of we're going to constantly be perfecting this, improving this. On the back side of this, you'll also lose the community component of the fellowship and the program. It's not necessarily the software, and it's not necessarily the methodology. It's really about implementation and unblocking and making like actually simple to do. So like the adoption is really where the value is in the execution. We want to get you to an ownable state fast, and we're doing it in a aligned manner. You're getting the support of people who do this professionally to be able to help you do it through the program, the fellowship. And because you're doing it in this place, not on your own, the data lives here, and we're leveraging this data to create a better capital marketplace. So you can quite literally get capital on bootstrapper.ai through who we are vetting as what we believe to be ownable capital, like good capital partners, people that you actually, again, if you make a decision, one of the 7 is capital truth. We're trying to create opportunities and optionalities of, if you chose from these capital partners, you're going to meet the framework of number 1, which is capital truth. And you do so through the data. Like we literally are capturing and delivering a better capital package, which allows these partners to come on and make these better decisions for you. And then also exits. We're building out the exit marketplace as well, which means that all your data is here, right? Like quite literally your business system's here. The ability to list the business for as much value as possibly, diligence the business, transfer the business. It's super dead simple if you do it here. So again, making the decision to just run your business, fund your business, and then eventually find it at home in this one simple place is what we want to achieve. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. You can buy the book. You can get all of the worksheets that we've created to be able to complement the process. You can go vibe code your own thing. I'd much rather just have 35 million businesses survive this great pivot. But I believe that if we do it together, if we do it in one place, if we focus and solve the right problems, then we can not just survive, but we can thrive. One of the things that we want to be able to accomplish in this fellowship program is to help you increase the value of your business. But we also, which we anchor it at 2x the value, because there's a lot of equity that you could really build. But it's also about documentation of proven profitable processes, right? So like the real reality is there's a good chance that agents are going to come in. There's a really good chance that a lot of our businesses are going to be run by AI. And you're going to want to have rails, right? Like you're going to want to have a secure and safe place where you can deploy AI in your business and feel safe about it. A lot of businesses are not proactive in process documentation because it's super boring. It's kind of like it's like the thing that's pushed off. When it comes to deploying agents in your business, you're going to want process documentation. You're going to want to know how you can teach, train, and equip your agents to follow proven profitable processes for your business, tying and using the right tools and having the right procedures in place, right? And part of what we do here is we're making it super dead simple to document your profit flows, which is how you set up your ownable OS. It's documentation, it's measurement, it's delegation, it's automatability, which is going to essentially at some point give you a command center for your agents if we go that track. And we're building simple tools to do it quickly. And we're also crowdsourcing proven profitable processes at scale. So another benefit of using our platform and doing it with us is the collective knowledge of a library of proven profitable processes that we can deploy in your business, especially if you're working with one of our long-term equity managers who they're third-party folks. They're all accredited folks to the Institute of Long-Term Equity Management, but like they're in our ecosystem and they're working. And a lot of these folks are people who currently have service businesses that are going to become extinct because of AI. So another big part of our why and why you should really come here and do this with us and support this ecosystem is we're trying to create the next era of jobs, right? It's like a lot of us were farmers, 150 years ago or whatever, and then industrial revolution, and we're all of a sudden we're not plowing fields, working in factories, right? Innovation in these moments of time of change, they get rid of some jobs, but they oftentimes create new jobs. And a function of what we want to figure out and are obsessed by right now is how we can take these service providers who the writing's kind of on the wall. It's pretty clear, like certain task-based services are going to become the way of the dinosaurs. They're going to probably become extinct. And if AI is going to be able to do a task cheaper than you, you're probably replaceable. And we want to shift folks towards becoming essential again. So if the reality is you're going to own a business, you need your business to be as valued as possible. Long-term equity management is an industry and a profession unto itself. It's just a great business to be in. We want to connect as many folks into that profession as we can, and we want to get folks connected to you. That's one of the ways that we provide the value of having LTM advisors and platform helping folks in the program, the fellowship. But we also think that there's a really good chance that in a short period of time, you're going to have a lot of your business just run through agents. And if right now we can capture your proven profitable processes, if we can figure out how to, effectively set this up, then there's a good chance that the job of the future may not be the task itself. It may be the workforce management of agents. And we think that we can potentially create that career profession for folks in this transition. So if you come in and you're a business owner, you're going to get value because you will quite literally double the value of your business in this program. That's like part of the offer that we're tied to. It's $500 for a year. You're getting the software, the fellowship, and the support. And if we achieve the milestone metric of 2xing your business as of the recording of this, then there's a 5K success fee. And that's how we align outcomes. So essentially, you're coming in and your advisor's doing this with you, and we're giving the software and the methodology and the framework. And then that advisor, that's really how they're getting into, that's how they're building their firm. And a lot of folks are making this transition. I just want to be forthcoming about that. And in a short period of time, as you're working with these advisors and you're setting up your ownable OS and you're getting yourself set up for this great pivot while you're 2xing your business, you're going to be documenting your proven profitable processes. You're going to be documenting your profit flows, which means that in the ownable OS, your advisor could help you deploy agents, and then they can help you manage that agentic workforce in the future. And there's a really good chance that that's one of the many jobs that could be created. And it would be cool if we could be a part of that. Support every business owner in this great pivot, not just survive the great pivot. Folks that are likely going to end up out of business because of it, we definitely want to be able to repurpose, not just help everybody survive, but hopefully collectively as a whole, we can all, thrive in this great pivot. And then because you're doing it on a platform and you're doing it here, you get access to the capital, the other services, right? So we have AI readiness, which is, again, essentially making sure you're set up for AI in your business. You got ownable bookkeeping so that you can keep track of accurate financial data. So you have your ownable cash flow and you have your profit score number. Your ownable profit flows, which is the documentation, proven profitable processes. And then you have your liquidity services, which is access to the ownable capital. Part of the fellowship program, you actually put together a capital package. You don't have to submit it, but at least you'll have it and you'll work through the process of having it. So if you ever need capital, you'll have everything that you need together to just hit the submit button. And same for exit. Part of the fellowship is to get your exit listing set up, your ownable exit listing, which again, you can keep unpublished in draft form. And if you're ever ready for that exit 5 liquidity event, sell your business, you just hit publish and you'll go live on the marketplace. So very cool things. We appreciate you for taking and investing the time with us today. As a thank you, again, you're going to be able to get the long form breakdown of what we covered today so you can reference it. We'll get you the template workbook as well. And if you want to kick off, and if you're not already in the platform and you want to start a trial, you can get a 3-day trial for $1, right? Quite literally start to experience this stuff. You can go through the Exit Studio. It's pretty simple to do. You take a 2-minute assessment. We capture your information. We actually do a preliminary ownable scorecard on you. So we actually start to do some of the things that we covered today on your onboarding. We give you an ownability high level score so that we get a sense of where you're at. And then we onboard you in. You can start doing things. You can get to like your first win of your first operational exit of like documenting your first profit flow within that trial period. And if you realize, hey, this is really for me, you just kick it forward. And it's $500 for the entire year of software, fellowship, and support, which I think is just an absolutely amazing bootstrapper friendly, SMB friendly ability for us to be able to support this market, not just survive, but thrive through this great pivot. So hopefully you're able to go through and do that. If you're already a part of it, this is a part of your retrospective, right? So if you're with us to the end here and you're already in the fellowship, you know it's Friday. Go in, update your targets, right? Delegate it to your team. Best way to do this is give everybody the last hour of the day to update their targets. You, as the owner, review it. You hit your retrospective button, and then you either Loom record your recap retrospective so that you have a communications loop to your team and you share it asynchronously going into Monday, or you set up that Monday meeting that we recommend and you leverage it as your ability to kickstart into a very strong week as you conquer the week ahead, building an ownable business. All right, till next time, appreciate you for joining us. Trust the process, commit to the journey.